Greetings, gaming historians, and welcome to Lord of Lore, where we break down the lore and history of our favorite video games and fantasies. Today, we're going back to the world of Amalur to discuss a mysterious but major aspect of the world's lore, and that is the Dragons of Amalor. For those of you who have finished the game know, Tirnoch, the main boss of Reckoning, is a godlike dragon responsible for creating the Fateless One and changing the fates of the mortals around her. But who are the dragons? Where do they come from? And what is their role? In today's video, I'm going to use context and reason to theorize about the dragons and how they relate to the Great Cycle. While all of this is pure speculation, I would like all of my viewers to really digest the information so that they can make their own views and theories, as all of this information is based on heavy research and careful detail. Now, fair warning, there are spoilers ahead. Let's discuss. Before I can begin to explain my theory of the dragons, we first have to learn more about the Great Cycle. Now, as I've already explained in previous videos, particularly regarding the Fae, the Great Cycle is an important part of Amalur's magic and lore, dictating the lives and function of nature and of the powerful Fae. However, as we've learned from both context in both Reckoning and Project Copernicus, the Great Cycle seems not only to apply to the Fae, but also the world as a whole, as it continues to shift in an eternal state of destruction and rebirth. But the question remains, how does this world cycle affect Amalur, and what future does it entail? To start, we need to dive into the earliest era of Amalur's world history, and that is the Arathi. According to the lore stones about Pharagnos, it was the Arathi who were the first beings to inhabit Amalur, predating even the immortal Fae. As we know, the Arathi were obsessed with order and fate, as well as the mortal enemies of the chaotic Naskaru, building a great empire that inspired all of the mortal races around them. However, they mysteriously disappeared, leaving nothing but ruins and sacred texts for their mortal neighbors to build upon. Where, however, did they all go? Did they die? Did they somehow ascend to a higher understanding? We can only guess, but by looking into other portions of Amalur lore, we can begin to theorize about the Arathi's disappearance and how it relates to the Great Cycle. Let us begin by talking about what appeared to be the next beings that entered the world in the Great Cycle, the Naskaru. According to the Pharagnos lore stones, the Naskaru suddenly descended upon the world, and though it was a Fae who recorded these lore stones looking back, there was no mention of the Fae taking any part in this world-scale battle. Why is this? Well, if you remember the lore stones about the Withering War, the passing of the seasons did not enter the world until later in Amalur history. What if the Fae did not enter the world of Amalur until after the Naskaru? Even then, the Fae were divided into clans and only seemed to represent life and beauty, and it was not until Own gained new power in an event that was described as the Arcane Veil did the powers of winter come to fight against summer. Because of this information, it is my belief that all of these beings were all part of the Great Cycle moving into the next phase of existence. The first phase represented order and brought the Arathi. The second represented chaos and brought the Naskaru. The third represented life and brought the Summer Fae. And the fourth represented decay and brought the Winter Fae. I believe that all of these stages are evidence of the Great Cycle as it continues to turn, each opening of the Arcane Veil bringing new power into Amalur as it progresses to the world's eventual death and rebirth. But some of you may be wondering, the Naskaru are still around. The Fae are still around. How does the cycle account for the Arathi's disappearance? To answer this question, we need to look into the most powerful threat in the game of Reckoning, and that is Tirnoch, an immortal dragon. As players know, Tirnoch is the main antagonist of the game, an immortal dragon capable of breaking fate and defying the gods. But what are dragons truly? According to Aelin Shear, Tirnoch is a Fae, but a special type of Fae with godlike power. But what she says next is interesting. When Tirnoch first came, the entire Alfar races had to unite to imprison her underneath Amethyst. And as you remember, the Alfar are the dominant mortal race, which means that it was up to the mortals in order to defeat Tirnoch. So here's where it gets interesting. Where were the Fae in this? No Fae ever mentioned or hinted at knowing of the existence of Tirnoch, with Gadflow the first to discover her and worship her as a god. And where were the Arathi? If they were the original rulers of the world, why did they not participate in the battle against Tirnoch? Here is where my theory comes to play. It is my belief that Tirnoch not only entered the world before the Fae, but also that her presence directly relates to the disappearance of the Arathi. Think about it. The Arathi were mortal enemies of chaos, but they were also obsessed with fate and predicting the future. What if in their desperation to put an end to the Naskaru threat, the Arathi sought power beyond the arcane veil and further into the cycle? This is further credited by Aelin Shear's order. Her order seems not only concerned with the dragons, but also the fate of the world. This is my theory. In their efforts to gain new power to defeat the Naskaru, the Arathi accidentally unleashed a member of the final cycle, the dragons. We know that the great cycle ends in a great destruction before the world's eventual rebirth, and I believe that it is the duty of the dragons to bring about this apocalypse. In freeing Tirnoch, the Arathi were not only destroyed, but her very presence disrupted the divine plan of the cycle. Think about it. We know that because of the Fateless One and the breaking of fate, the world of Amalur is definitely not going as planned. Because of Tirnoch, new magical powers have been unleashed on the world, and a new cycle of beings, the Fae, are starting to disappear, just like the Arathi before them. While all of this is pure conjecture, I believe that the Great Cycle introduces new beings with each turn of the Arcane Veil, the final being the great dragons who destroy the world for the next cycle. But due to the events of the game, we know that this grand plan has been altered, and this will likely come to play in future content. However, all of this is purely theoretical. What do you think happens as the Great Cycle turns? Why do you think the Arathi disappeared? Who are the dragons, and what role do you think they play? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and remember to drop a like and subscribe so my channel can grow. Feel free to comment what you would like to see next, new videos every week. God bless.